So let's start with where we left you guys last week when it seemed like everything was full speed ahead in regards to resuming the NBA season. But as it turns out, there are a faction of players who are not too keen into entering the Orlando bubble. The players names who have come up the most have been Kyrie Irving, who's an NBA Players Union VP, who have been quoted in calls saying that now is the time to capitalize on the momentum that's been generated by this movement against racism and police brutality that's been sweeping the world. Dwight Howard has also been outspoken. Our Avery Bradley's been outspoken. They've kind of been the leaders of this NBA Players Coalition that's kind of talked about things that they feel are needed to even begin to think about coming back to play this year. And they've all advocated for this idea that perhaps playing is not the best idea and that they would cause a distraction from the larger issues that they feel are very important, which is, again, the fight against racism, the fight against police brutality. Before even starting play, Bradley and the Players Coalition laid out a series of demands that they want to see enacted in, I guess, some kind of statement or something they put out to ESPN. They include better improved hiring practices to include more diversity in the front office and head coaching positions, direct donations to organizations serving in the black community, and partnerships with black-owned businesses and arena vendors. So, this kind of threw a monkey wrench in everything. We all thought it was all, pretty much a slam dunk. And with the, spiking COVID cases in the state of Florida, with the added anxiety we're starting to hear about players kind of realizing that when they decide to get on that plane from wherever they are and head down to, Disney World and get into that facility and get into those hotels, that it's going to be, 2 months potentially of you not being able to leave this location. And some of the stuff that we've already heard about the rules that will be out there are pretty strict. And there's an anonymous call line to say, hey, if you see somebody breaking the rules, you can drop the dime on them. So
it's almost like the D'Angelo Russell special.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people saying that, and I also saw people bring out Chris Paul. Does Chris Paul have a snitching history I don't know about?
Well,
I don't remember?
But like the thing with Chris Paul is like, he's like a, the idea, I guess
he's always trying to find an edge. He's doing whatever it takes.
Not just the edge, but that how do I put it? I don't want to say the gimmick on Chris Paul, but like I guess the book on Chris Paul has always been that he's, been a mole, kind of a player's mole that kind of works with the league or works with the coaches or, kind of a rat. So that's always been the thing. I think Matt Barnes has been a guy that's talked about that before. Some other guys who, Kenyon Martin, not Matt Barnes. I think it was Kenyon Martin who had kind of said that, but it may have been Matt Barnes too. I don't know. But that's always been kind of the.
It feels like one of them. It feels like one of them light-skinned dudes who say something like that about Chris Paul.
Somebody had played with him. Said, "Oh yeah, Chris Paul. He's got that reputation for being kind of I don't want to say a sellout, but because of where
he has a little bit of Derek Fisher to him.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Not the messing with people's wives. Not that at all. I'm not seeing it at all. I'm talking about the
players.
Guy. Yeah, and the kind of he seems to have a really good relationship with the owners and with the league, and whatever that means is what it means. But I think for a lot of with Fisher, I knew that came with negative connotations when they thought that he was selling them a bad deal during that lockout situation. They thought that he ended up kind of siding with the GMs and the owners and the commissioner, which was kind of that lockout negotiation was nuts. Like that was crazy. We're gonna get to the baseball stuff, which is crazy too. But you remember how that ended? How Fisher was the leader of the players thing, and all of a sudden they all turned on him. He was like with the owners. That was crazy. But anyway, this is no longer looking again like the slam dunk that it looked like last week. This is now becoming kind of a crawl to the finish line. Adam Silver kind of just gave it up and was like, "Yo, man, this ain't gonna be for everybody." He basically said, "I'm not expecting everybody to be there. If you have some kind of underlying health condition, they've already said you could put out a waiver and say, yo, I can't play in this joint, and they'll pay you.
Right. Or they may force you not to play.
Right, yeah, they may force you not to play. And even if you decide, I don't got a waiver, I'm just not pulling up, you could just decide you won't get money, but you're not gonna get suspended or be disciplined in any way. You can just decide not to go. So, how do you feel, Kendall, about the sentiments with some of these guys not wanting to show up? We talked about it a little bit off air, but I'm curious how your feelings have evolved
Right.
since then.
So look, Kyrie, um, he's gotten a lot of flack for some of the stuff he said. I think some of the stuff rightfully so. Um, some of the people attacking him were kind of just attacking him because it's Kyrie Irving. And look, I get it. Of course, I get it more than most people. In terms of not liking Kyrie. For him, his kind of his quirky nature or whatever. But I think in this case, I'm not gonna let somebody's past, kind of judgments or mistakes or character concerns, it's not gonna make me dismiss any of the points they're trying to make. So I do think that's I think where some people may be going out of bounds with this, and I think someone like Kendrick Perkins, clearly has a gripe with Kyrie similar to mine because he's a Celtic guy and was a Cavs guy, so he knows some of the stuff with Kyrie. So he's never been the biggest fan of Kyrie since what happened in Boston. So I think some of his energy that's been anti-Kyrie, some of that I think is held over, kind of stuff that he's had for Kyrie Irving. But overall, like I think what Kyrie brings up are some legitimate points, and I'm not sure about him talking about the this feels fishy and this feels like systemic racism. I get the optics of it aren't great in terms of the whole bubble stuff, but largely it's for health reasons. I would say largely 100% is for health reasons. If the NBA couldn't do if the NBA didn't if they didn't have to do this, they wouldn't be doing this. But they can't really do it any other way. And then beyond health reasons, for economic reasons, because if you can't do it any other way, then they can't make any money. And that's the whole point of this, is that everyone's got to make money in this scenario. I know, I guess you would look at it optically, oh well, but the owners are the ones making the most money. The old white people are the ones making the money off of us. And I guess that's a fair thing to say, but at the same time, you don't cut your nose to spite your face. Like this, this feels like a step too far to say we're not going to play. And maybe he's just throwing that out there. Maybe that's being characterized as this is Kyrie's stance. I don't know. Kyrie hasn't said anything publicly. It's all been kind of, quotes and hearsay and sources and rumors. So until Kyrie officially comes out with a stance publicly, if he ever does, we won't know. But if behind the scenes, if he's putting that out there as an idea, I respect it. Throw it out there. Oh, maybe we just don't play. If that's his stance, that we shouldn't play. We should all stick together and put our foot in the sand and say we're not playing because there's more important things going on. I don't necessarily agree with that notion, because I just don't think that is. I don't know if they're mutually exclusive. So if they're not mutually exclusive, why take such an extreme measure that is going to ultimately, backfire on the basketball end for a lot of people, not just yourselves, but mostly for yourselves, if you're looking at this from a selfish point of view, but then also backfire for, obviously fans and other sponsors and, obviously the league in general and TV partners. And it's going to get to the point where, obviously, again, force majeure, the local TV networks and the national TV networks will blow up whatever contracts they have, because they're not paying money for no games. And then once that happens, the owners are gonna blow up the CBA. And once the CBA gets blown up, now we're gonna have a lockout almost certainly, because the owners now during a pandemic aren't gonna all of a sudden be trying to give away stuff. We see what's happening in baseball, and what's happening in baseball will 100% happen in basketball if the CBA gets blown up. And if that's the case, it's gonna be bad. And the players, whatever, all the stuff that they got, they're gonna probably have to give up to play basketball going forward. So I don't know. I mean, look, maybe Kyrie's ready for that fight, and maybe he is. Maybe that's the point. But look, I think some of the stuff, Austin Rivers obviously put out an Instagram post that I thought laid out a lot of the good arguments about why the guy should be playing. I understand, the stuff about money. Some people don't care about that. Some people, look, I've already lost my job and I'm out there protesting, or, I like, yeah, but, not everyone is in a bad financial situation. The guys should have maybe prepared for that, or had a so-and-so, or had some sort of financial manager making sure that in the case of worst case scenario, they'd still be secure financially, because they're all making millions of dollars. So I understand maybe that, but even then, I'm like, that's still not fair to tell a guy, we're not going to play. I'm not going to play. Again, Kyrie can do whatever he wants. I mean, he's hurt anyway. So part of me is like, why is he the one saying this where you're not even playing? You can do whatever you want. You don't have to be there. You probably shouldn't be there. But even someone like Avery Bradley or Rajon Rondo, or not Rondo because he hasn't said anything, but Dwight Howard, rather, who's also been vocal about this, you don't have to play. You don't have to play. In fact, maybe if this is your stance, I encourage you not to play. Maybe you feel that you could be more important or more useful outside of the bubble than you can be inside of the bubble. That's totally your prerogative. But not everyone feels that way. Not everybody, maybe wants to. So that's the tough part about this. Some people feel like a LeBron or somebody feel like they may be more visible and more to maybe do more things with the platform that they have playing in these games. So I don't know. I mean, again, I wouldn't tell anybody you have to play. This is all just the social aspect of it. I think the health thing really is where I'm like, I totally get if a guy doesn't want to play, because the stuff in Florida is not good. It's getting bad.
It's getting spooky. Yeah,
it's getting spooky. And Disney, they haven't given me confidence. The NBA hasn't given me confidence that guys aren't going to be getting sick. In fact, it seems like the NBA knows guys are going to get sick, and we're not shutting it down.
They getting the Green Lantern power rings to try to find out who has coronavirus before they get coronavirus. Did you see that there's like these rings that players?
Ring, yeah.
Apparently, it's gonna be able to tell, you getting the symptoms, which I'm like, first of all, again, first of all, it's just like, one, it's just another example of like, man, what we are able to figure out for rich people.
Exactly.
Like, how we didn't get that the first day this joint popped off in New York.
Why wasn't it mass produced? That's a very simple thing.
Yeah, like but for the rich interest, they made sure they got some like Earth 2 technology. Like, I'm like, what is this? Second of all, I'd be tweaking if like I had a ring and all of a sudden it started glowing or vibrating because I'm about to get coronavirus.
Yeah,
like,
I know, right?
I already have anxiety about getting
people
sick.
Already tweeting about it.
And if you gave me that, man,
but Disney's not giving me any confidence when you hear, the employees don't have to quarantine. The employees, they can go in and out. To me, I'm like JJ Reg tweeted, so it's not a bubble then.
Especially with just happening with Homeboy in the top rank
right
main event tonight. A manager who was allowed to pull up late to the event, and somehow he's supposed to be quarantined, got tested for positive for COVID-19. They had to scrap the main event.
So which is probably why they're saying no agents. Which even that I'm kind of like, all right, so this is kind of weird. So families allowed, but agents aren't. Why is that? I mean, I get it, but I don't know. It's all weird. I don't know how I feel about like families can be there, but if you're not family, you can't be there. I don't know. I feel like guys should just be able to pick whoever they want to be with them. Personally, I don't know. This is all a weird. There's all a weird setup. The NBA having their thing about these super strict guidelines of you can't go in another player's room and you can't play ping pong doubles because that doesn't do social distancing and stuff. And it's like you're taking all these measures, which look great, fine, but then why are we playing?
Right.
I'm saying that. Get on the court and there's no distancing.
Yeah.
So this whole thing, I don't know. From a health perspective, it still stinks. That's what I would be concerned about. That's what I would be worried about. Beyond that, To me, I don't think that the social thing. I get it, but that's something that I would table for either still continue your stuff through social media, through videos, through uh stuff inside the bubble. But to me, Kyrie, you're talking about stuff that the the games don't start for a month. When are teams reporting?
Mm-hmm.
Teams reporting what in a couple weeks? I don't know.
So on Kyrie, man, I think this is all complicated. I think what I'll say about Kyrie is I think that in many ways it's unfortunate. I'm not saying it's necessary. It is kind of his fault, but in a sense, I think people should be smarter than that. So I'm gonna say partly it's not his fault, but his reputation is not giving him a lot of benefit of the doubt on a lot of this for some people, which is unfortunate because I'm always going to listen to someone who's fighting for justice. Like, I think that it's whack that his reputation as a problem child and being difficult is being used against him in his fight for justice.
Right.
I think that's outrageous. I'm gonna call it out. I think that Woj's headline about Kyrie the disruptor and him painting him out to this one man wrecking crew that he then walked back.
He walked it
On
back.
Sports
Wow.
Center. I watched it on Sports Center. He didn't walk the article back. He was like he made a line like it's becoming clear that Kyrie appears to be speaking for a much larger number of players than previously thought. And I'm like,
Right.
Well, that seemed to be totally opposite from your reporting. And we know Woj is the GOAT right now when it comes to NBA reporting. But
Yeah.
that was foul. That was I'm gonna pick a story angle. I'm gonna pick a narrative that's gonna fit this story that I'm putting, and knowing how that detrimental that would be. I thought that was corny. I think that Kendrick Perkins has been corny with his nonsense about just shut up and play. You would be in a distraction I think that again, whenever anybody is speaking to real, Stephen A. Smith saying, this has nothing to do with social issues. How you could say you're not going to work because, black folks if black folks couldn't, you were just gonna say they can't go to work because of racism, they wouldn't have gone to work for 200 years, and it's just I'm not gonna. What's happening out here is evil. Let's keep it 100. Racism is evil, and the idea that we're going to try to minimize and demonize someone who has a view of how he wants to fight it because your precious basketball is not going to be played is a problem. That doesn't mean he's above criticism. It doesn't mean that he's above people saying, hey, maybe I don't think this is the best way. But some of the personal that I've heard from these attacks from Kyrie and Kendall. I'm a New York Knicks fan who cannot stand the Nets in this new Nets team they've put together. So if I'm saying this and you're a Celtic fan, and even though I may feel more okay with Kyrie, you're also given him his respect in this regard. If we can sit here and say this, then these people should be ashamed of themselves for how they presented Kyrie's stance. And I'll be the one to say, look, when I first heard this story, no context, kind of not really knowing what's going on in here, Kyrie don't want to play. I was throwing the jokes. I was like, oh yeah, flat earther Kyrie who's not blown. His team can't play. They ain't gonna make the playoffs, so you might as well blow up the league. Yeah, of course. It's funny. It's ironic. But then when you do the research and you look at what's happening, and you got real people doing real takes. Jason McIntyre, real takes. Oh, he's doing this because LeBron's about to get his ring. Are you serious right now, dog? Black men are hanging from trees in places in this country. Yep. You're gonna make Kyrie's true frustration and true passion for racial inequality, or racial equality rather, and you're gonna tie that to your LeBron over Jordan take? That's the corniest BS I've ever seen. And it's shameful because I feel like a lot of this stuff is intentional because they're just trying to get to us seeing ball. But when I think about Kyrie and I he's talked about again struggles with mental health, and I hear how these people are just raking him through the coals. Whoever's snitching on him, telling every time he has a meeting, sending out the text to Steph. No, I'm not dissing Stephen Bondi because people are just telling him what he's seeing and hearing. I don't think he's amongst this group, but he has a call next 20 minutes. Stephen Bondi's got, hey, Kyrie saying let's start a new league. Like, this stuff is intentional, dog. This shouldn't be happening.
Now, what I will say is, like, I agree. The players snitching stuff. Now, one, it shows you, look, the players are a mess right now.
So that's true.
The players are a mess. The Player Association's a mess. Because Kyrie's a VP, and like, it's tough because I don't know if I agree. I don't think Kyrie, and there's some people out there that feel like Kyrie's on leaking all this stuff, and I'm like, if he is, he's not making himself look that great. So I don't think he's leaking any of it.
To be fair, it wouldn't be the first time Kyrie willingly opened his mouth and didn't make himself look great.
That is fair.
You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be the first time you made a miscalculation with deciding I'm going to speak on something and thinking that it's going to turn out a certain way. Be keeping it a buck.
Yeah,
I'm defending Kyrie through all this, but let's keep it a buck with how he's been.
But I do feel like some of the players. Let's say I'm a player, and I have the same stance that I've had on this show that, like, we should be out there playing, like, for the sake of the CBA, which, again, sounds kind of greedy, but, like, I mean, it's still these guys' livelihood, so it's hard for me to tell them, no, like, you're going to shut down
they face a doomsday scenario if they decide not to play, and that's something that has to be discussed. Like, it's not just, it doesn't matter. That matters. I agree.
And, again, I'm not saying everyone shut up and play. I'm saying if you feel comfortable from a health perspective and a social perspective, you feel comfortable playing, then you should be allowed to play. But we shouldn't say we gotta band together and not play. I think that is too drastic. But if you're a player and you feel that way, how would you feel if Kyrie has all this energy about we shouldn't play, we gotta band together and not play? You'd probably be like, this guy's a lunatic, or this guy's going to ruin it for everyone.
Yeah, but I think the character assassination is where it goes a step too far.
Yeah, and maybe, look, and still, as a union, you still should keep things in-house. There's still ways you go about things that don't entail you calling Woj the first chance you get, or Shams, but it's still, I don't know, like...
And look, well, here's what I'll say too, and I want to make this clear. Like, I think that in many ways, Kyrie isn't a perfect messenger. That doesn't mean he shouldn't be or he can't be a messenger, but he's not a perfect messenger, and that does muddle this message. Look, I think that it does mean something that he's a player VP who approved this plan, and when he allegedly had the chance to raise concerns, the questions he was asking were all kind of vague and didn't seem to really have a point. And maybe they did. Like, some people are saying actually they did have a point. We look back into some of the stuff that they're now asking for as a players coalition. It's like, okay, but what's with the coded stuff? Like, it didn't seem like he really had much. He really didn't seem all that engaged in some of the concerns that are now being raised. And that's not to say that you can't change your mind, but that is, George Floyd was unfortunately dead, and people were protesting for about a week or so since when Minneapolis was burning, when they were agreeing to this. So it's not like, now I'm like, I didn't know it was going to be all this crazy. Like, we saw where this was going. I think the fact that he's an injured player, and now, again, we're hearing that he's representing a lot of people, so I get that, but, an injured player who had already made a decision long ago that he was not returning, telling other guys, hey, you don't go out there and play. I don't know if that's necessarily his place, but he has a right to his opinion, and he has a right to feel like, if I'm the only kind of star player with clout and and a high position on this board to make a voice, then I got to do it. Then I get that too, and I don't like the last second nature of it. I think that, again, like, I'm not saying that you can't feel the way. I understand how he's feeling. I don't know if I feel like you could just agree on a deal and then at the last minute when they doing the last set of parameters getting it together, you're like, actually, nah, we can't do this. That's gonna rub people the wrong way. I'm not saying that again, you can't feel differently or change your mind, but just understand that you're gonna be letting people down, and I think that you got to be willing to understand that. He said he's willing to lay it all down. So if that's true, then he should understand that. But I don't think that that's wrong for it to be like, oh, you people shouldn't be upset. It's like, no, people are going to be upset. They were told basketball's going to happen, and now all of a sudden, the very last second, there's this move to suggest that there's not. And there are a lot of people right now who don't have a lot of joy and who don't have a lot of sense of happiness because of what's going on. So all those are points are fair points against him. And again, all the stuff about the CBA and the notion that Kyrie is a super, super high paid player who has made $200 million, pretty much in the NBA. Like, I mean, all that stuff matters, but it doesn't. But when you consider that, again, there are a lot of players who seem to feel his way. That some of that stuff kind of like some of those points you kind of chip away at a little bit.
So some of the quotes, again, if these quotes are legit, I sometimes again I look and I'm like, I get why these players are like looking at this guy like he's nuts.
Yeah, because they feel very Kyrie. They lack clarity. They're very vague. They don't seem to have a point. I get it. I totally get it.
Making any money anyway, or really getting paid. Only about 20 guys, and I'm one of them. I'm like, look, I get his point. Again, I think Kyrie. I think his flack is. I don't think he likes that. All the billionaire old white guys are the ones making the money, making the real money. And
I'm not sure why he determined that and learned that today, but I mean, look, man. Again, a lot of the stuff that's happening is making people think things different.
People are being opened, to a lot of. I think he realized, wow, this whole system is kind of whack. That's what he's talking about, making a whole new league, and he's saying, look, only 20 guys. I mean, you know how warped you sound in today's society by saying, in today's climate, by saying only 20 of us are really getting paid when like. There are 80 dudes out there with like $50 million contracts.
Yeah, yes.
That. I mean,
it's a private conversation, but yeah, that's not a good look.
Public opinion. When you're saying only 20 guys in the league are really getting paid, and like, Nick Batum is like the 50th highest paid player in the league. He's got like a $60 million contract.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things where it's like, man, like. That's why some people are like, look, I maybe would jive with Kyrie if there weren't so many crazy things in there. So I don't know. The premise. I agree with you that like Kyrie, we shouldn't just knock on him because it's Kyrie. Because if this was Steph Curry saying it,
or Avery Bradley, because Avery Bradley's been saying the same stuff and way more clearly and way more eloquently, and nobody seems to have bars for him.
Yeah.
Dwight Howard has a lot of the same problematic history that Kyrie does, and nobody seems to have bars for him either.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like this stuff is that's why I said this stuff is corny, because it's like it's you're again, Kyrie, very imperfect messenger, and I think they're picking on that because the other guys, and Lou Williams, I think has also been very vocal and very clear, like about because like when those guys start speaking, I started seeing, okay, I get what he's saying now. Because again, some of this stuff I think was on purpose in terms of how the media portrayed it. But again, some of these pull quotes, he was saying stuff, and I'm just like, okay, those are three different points that I all understand, but I don't know how they connect. And I thought it would have been unfair and not. It would have been unfair to me to try to make some kind of leap because I thought it was that confusing. Some of the things he was saying, and like when you're in a conversation, you're just talking, you're passionate. Like I'm not hating on Kyrie for it, but. It falls in line with a lot of stuff he says in public, where it's kind of a lot of different thoughts that don't really all make sense, and it's hard to put together. And to me, when I started hearing those other guys, I was like, okay, I know exactly what he's trying to say now. And is the right move? I don't know. I can't speak to what the risk is for you deciding to blow up the CBA, because that's what's going to happen. But I know this fight is worth fighting everything you got for. That I know. So if this you feel like is a effective way, then I gotta support him. I'm not saying that I don't know if this is the right way. I tend to think that there's a way they could really make a stand and not blow up the CBA and still make this a point. But that's I'm not a player. I mean, I don't, like they have a right to do what they want to do. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I'm kind of taking myself out of it. I'm a fan who hasn't seen basketball. I'm just like, yo, man, if I get something great, these guys decide, yo, man, this racism out here is really serious and we need to address it in a serious way, and they feel this is the way to do it, then I'm like, all right, I'm a black man, so
Yeah,
this is more important to me than even basketball. So I understand it.
what I will say is I think we do also have to be careful with, like, a lot of these, thinking about a lot of the people, if we're being real, that we've heard come out and speak against Kyrie. Again, mostly black people, if not all.
Yep.
But they have vested interest in the NBA playing.
Absolutely.
And I won't even name names, but all the people that that have been black.
I've already named them. So it's all good.
Already named a lot of people. Whether they work for TNT or for ESPN or work for another company, they all have a vested interest in the NBA playing. So, they don't get anything out of Kyrie and a bunch of players saying, you know what, we're not going to play. We're going to cancel the season and the CBA is blowing up. Yes, they'll look at it and say, you're hurting yourselves, but you're also hurting them at the end of the day. So that's where if you hear a lot of frustration in a lot of these people's voices, would I be frustrated from a fan perspective? Sure. I'd be like, why do we push back the draft if we're not going to play games? But at the end of the day, like, if there's no season, I mean, all right, it's unfortunate because I was getting excited for it, but it's the safest thing to do, and maybe hopefully we can push up the draft now. But a lot of these people, if you hear the frustration, is wow, so we're going to lose a lot of money off this thing. Not just the players, but us. So, I mean, look, that's it's funny how that works. But at the end of the day, I do think that there is some legitimate, like, frustrations from fans if this doesn't go through.
And my last thought on this, because I do want to touch on Austin Rivers' post, which we talked about a little bit rather earlier. And like I said, I agree with a lot of stuff he was saying about, Kyrie makes a lot more money than a lot of these guys. That by doing this, we really, 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 put the future of the league in jeopardy for future players, coming after us, and even guys who are still currently in the league, and all those things need to be considered. And that playing NBA games at this time when nothing else is going on gives you the ultimate platform. These are all fair points. Nobody's right or wrong. It's all a discussion. It's all healthy. I think that just like, again, there are parts of what Kyrie was saying that I don't necessarily see or agree with, but I respect him, and I respect his fight, and I respect Austin for stuff he's talking about and how he sees that there's a positive that he had to play. And my thing is,
you gotta know my position,
right? But the only thing I will say about Austin's post is the one thing I did vehemently disagree with was his point about there's a chance that by us providing entertainment, a lot of African American kids who maybe instead would be out getting in trouble could be maybe watching us play and maybe seeing the social stance that we take. I see part of that, but I think that's still rather problematic because I feel like, one, I think that if we think that there's an issue that if we don't play basketball, black kids are going to be getting in trouble in the streets, that's a reason to protest. That's a reason to feel like there's an issue. That's a larger issue at hand that shouldn't just be, well, it's up to the entertainers now to go out there so we can get them off the streets. No, we have politicians, we have elected officials that have failed these cities and these communities, and they're the ones that need to be held feet to the fire. The police in these communities that have their feet held to the fire because for these instances where black kids are going out and getting in trouble because there's nothing to do. But also, I thought that it lost sight of the fact that if you look at these faces and you look at these bodies that are out here marching in these streets and protesting and raising their voice, there are a lot of young people, man. Like, and it's not just all black. There's a lot of white kids, a lot of kids of all ethnicities, but there are a lot of young black kids, like young black men, young black women, kids out there marching in these streets, and the fact that there isn't anything else to do, and that they're the fact that there is nothing to do, and therefore they're out in these streets is part of the reason why this has been progress so far. The fact that moved the needle has been because of these kids. So I thought that also kind of was a little short sighted to say, well, these kids ain't got nothing to do, so they watch us play. Like, no, these kids have been doing something. Like, these kids, I'm not sure he's clearly very supportive. I'm not saying he's not doing anything, but these kids are really carrying the movement in terms of being out on the front lines. And I think that we got to remember that too. So if you go out there and start playing, maybe that's taking some kids off the front line. Maybe some kids that were out protesting, now out marching, maybe now they're deciding to watch that Lakers versus Clippers game. And that's the whole point of why these guys don't think that maybe they should play. And that's a fair argument. Again, nobody's completely right, nobody's completely wrong, but these are all just points we got to talk about.
There's a again, like you said, there's a no right answer there. Like, obviously, I think a lot of people still should be considering, the health risk out, people even being outside, like that obviously is also something we have to consider. Hopefully, the second wave doesn't get worse, and but I don't know. We don't know. The whole, but that's always been the thing that's been a little uneasy for anybody. May not for anybody, but at least for me and a lot of people, about seeing all these people outside. In droves.
I mean, I'll be honest. It's kept me from being out in these streets. I feel like I'm trying to use my voice, trying to use my work, the work I've been working on, to give a contribution. But and to be fairness, New York, again, it's not as bad as those places, but yeah, it's the coronavirus is obviously serious out here. So yeah, I mean, getting some people off the streets is also in one sense part of it in terms of the safety thing, but again, it goes both ways. You know what I'm saying? I see both of those sides with that.